Okay, so welcome to January 2020 Ruby conference. The conference, which is basically like, it's kind of like a live lecture almost, where I'll talk about a topic of some kind that's usually on the cutting edge, not really shared with the rest of the audience at all. Then we just have a discussion about it, or we just discuss whatever you want at the end. Discussion period is probably about a half hour. Sometimes it's an hour. So these can go up to like 2 hours. And usually like the first 45 minutes to an hour is the actual lecture. So just kind of making you guys aware of just kind of how it's working and whatnot. Got another person that came in. If you guys are coming in, just put something like in the chat and saying if when it comes time to allow to talk. But if you don't have the ability to talk, that's okay. I'll make sure that when the Q&A session starts, that we'll be able to do that. The Q&A session, please kind of keep it like the live lectures, specific to what I talk about in this particular thing. But after that, then we'll just open up to just whatever, even, I don't know, shooting the shit. Like it's not that big of a deal. So, but, so yeah, Ruby conference, January 2020. Happy 2020, guys. We made it. Pretty awesome. All right, so we're going to be talking about basically two things. I know that this is basically known as, how to rewire your brain. And a lot of people don't understand that when you're rewiring your brain, this is actually something people naturally do. But what you don't understand is that it has a lot to do, like we're talking about like rewiring. What does that affect exactly when we're talking about, four sides of the mind theory and, Jungian analytical psychology and the like. And this kind of gets in a little bit into Dario Nardi's work. So if you haven't read Neuroscience Personality, get the book. This is actually directly applicable to this conference lecture. You get that. I think you can find it at csjoseph.life/reading. And I think you get like a free Audible audio book if you sign up, if you're not an Audible user already, and you do it there. But anyway, how to rewire your brain. If you read Dario Nardi's work, you start to understand, like, yes, there is a neuroscience to personality, and yes, there is a system. It's really cool that he discovered a system. Again, my only issue with Dario Nardi's work is his inputs, meaning the data that he uses. You can't just hand somebody an MBTI test and then they know their type, especially when we've proven internally here that right now the accuracy rating for and with a 2% margin of error, plus or minus, I'm basically just calling it, there's a 1 in 5 chance that the MBTI test is accurate. And that's a problem. So it's about a 20% chance that we're seeing now. And that's combining all of the coaching clients that I've verified in 2019, as well as another one of my proteges, their coaching clients that they have in doing the verification process. And I was directly involved in that verification process as well. And we probably did about 40 plus people just in their group and their niche, which is basically a business marketing niche anyway. And the statistics so far, it looks like it's been consistently 1 out of 5. At first, it was 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3.5. And then all of a sudden it just got to like 1 out of 5. And it's been consistently 1 out of 5 now for about 6 months. So I think it's pretty safe to say that I can like claim that it's 1 out of 5 in terms of MBTI test accuracy. I will be releasing some statistics about that. So for example, when our first personality quiz goes live, I'm hoping to get a point where as people take the test, and it's going to ask people their gender, their age, it's going to ask them a lot of different demographic related questions. And we're going to have like this pie chart. My goal is to have this pie chart with all these different analytics that are posted that will be updated in real time as any user around the world 24 hours a day in real time takes the test. It will be published to this page. I'm really hoping to do that. That way we could actually see the statistics coming in raw, and then we can actually run reports against that information, and it will definitely create some amazing written content and some scientific knowledge, and where we could actually get to a point where we could scientifically prove, algorithmically speaking, that this Jungian analytical psychology is actually a hard science, and we're getting closer. I think the reason why people have had a hard time proving that it's a hard science is because they're just using regular Boolean mathematics of, x plus x equals, or x plus y equals z, or just, these very basic variables of plus, or of addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, right? That's a problem. Like, okay, the thing is that the brain is an extremely complex system. And if I was to utilize an object in the physical realm, a concrete object that could actually, show you how you need to be approaching the brain or the mind, scientifically speaking, it's an abacus. You actually have to be using calculus to calculate someone's psyche and how it behaves. And of course, that's going to be, using calculus-based algorithms and derivatives is really going to be how we're going to develop sentient AI to begin with. But once you get to that standpoint, like once you actually know that there's potentially unlimited vectors that you could do to a certain quasi-dimensional abacus, you have to identify how many possible vectors there are. You also have to identify the dimensions, but I don't think it's necessary to identify the dimensions anymore when you're looking at the type grid. The type grid itself basically is a cube, and then you do an abacus, a cubed abacus basically. And then if you could think of all the possible potential vectors per piece within that abacus, you could actually develop a pattern and algorithm that allows you to measure the brain and measure the mind, especially from a neuroscience point of view. And I think that directly correlates and fits in directly with Dario Nardi's work. I would love to have the opportunity to work with him directly to prove this. So my hypothesis is this abacus, basically. I've already proved it, practically speaking. I know it's true. TI parent, like we tested it. It is true. We have proof of concept. The thing is, we just don't have the data to get the TE users out there to believe it. That's the difference. So what we're hoping is going to happen is that when we deploy the personality quiz, we're going to be getting this data and these analytics and producing them in real time, so people can actually see how it works, and actually can get a true spread where it's our audience that are doing it. Now, remember, the numbers that we get will be skewed. How and why? Let me explain. Think about it this way. When you go to season 3 on like the season 3 playlist on the YouTube channel, look at which videos have more views than the others. So you have to consider interest bias. Interest bias means which of the 16 types are more interested in learning about 4 sides of the mind theory compared to others. So statistically, the ESFJ is the one who's just the least interested. They just don't care. Statistically, the most interested is, well, at least in my audience, it's INTPs. Somebody else's audience, it's not. Other people's audiences, it's INFJs or INFPs. But you could actually be pretty safe to say that it's the bottom right-hand side of the type grid, the introverted, intuitive, the INXX types. So naturally, I expect that interest bias to, transfer directly over when we deploy the personality quiz to get those analytics, because the people who are the most likely to take that test are going to be INXX types, statistically speaking. So there will be that bias there. Now, if we could get to a point where, Chase becomes the world's dictator and is able to compulsory force every human being in mankind to take the test, then at that point, we'll definitely know for sure. So it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have to realize I can't just force every human being to take the personality quiz to get all of the results that we need. Now, of course, by now you're thinking, okay, wow, Chase, do you really think your personality quiz is going to be that accurate? To my knowledge, I think I can guarantee 8 out of 10 accuracy with it. But I actually believe, logically speaking, it is 10 out of 10 accurate. It just depends on how well you can educate the person during the test on how to take the test. And we've developed a quick educational way and simplification where we've reduced the test into logical questions. So there's very few questions, and it's just you're either this or you're this. It's literally just a choice between you're an apple or you're an orange. That's it. And you do that multiple times. And then sometimes there's apples missing, sometimes there's oranges missing. And then you come out and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm an orange. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm an apple. You know what I mean? But I am a Honeycrisp apple. You see what I'm saying? Like that's how it's going to be approached. But again, there is a bias based on the preferences of human beings because certain psyches out there are interested in the science, and a lot of psyches out there, like ESFJs and ISTPs, who are in general just don't care. They don't care. Doesn't apply to them. They don't see the benefit. I mean, you could argue ISFJs as well. But I have noticed ISFJs are a little bit more interested than ESFJs because the least engaging types that we have right now within the audience in total are ISTPs, ESFJs, ISFJs, and ISTJs. So it's kind of interesting that it's those types, but okay, fair enough. ESFPs are cool. They like it. ESTPs are cool. They like it, unless they're flow state. Then you have even ISFPs like it. But I guess that would make sense because they're my golden quadra, right? They'd be willing to accept that information coming from an ENTP. Fair enough. But the bottom line is that you have to realize that when we're producing these statistics in real time, it's going to be skewed. However, the third generation of the application or the personality quiz itself, not second generation, and I'm only talking about first generation now when it comes to updating things, but when it gets to third generation, version 3 won't even be about psychoanalysis or psychology anymore. It'll be completely different. In fact, psychology will take a back burner seat and it won't really matter anymore. We found a way to actually provide direct benefits to people's lives without even talking about psychology at all, where they don't even have to care. Ooh, the type grid, I don't care, because the system will do everything for them. It doesn't matter. So they won't actually have to understand what it is they're using. They just know it works, right? When we get to that point, at that moment, all the 16 types will be interested in using the system, and they will be psychoanalyzed by the system with that 10 out of 10 accuracy that we're going for. And when that happens at that point, and it's really going to be third generation, that we're actually going to have a large enough sample size worldwide to be able to run these reports, and we can definitively prove, based on the data that we have, that yes, it is actually a hard science. And that's just all it is. I already know it's a hard science. Maybe some of you here think it's a hard science. Maybe some of you here don't think it is. The bottom line is, I will prove it's a hard science before I die. I guarantee you. Like, it will happen. It's self-evident. It is a fundamental. The difference is that we just don't have the data because no one is in a position to collect the data. We, CSJ as a company, is getting to a point where we are going to be in position to start collecting that data this year. I would suspect that by the end of 2021 will be when we have version 3 out and we are getting our first reports and getting some real answers. We'll even be able to take this data and even potentially predict based on gender, birth order, as well as the month, day, or year, which of the 365 days someone is born. And think of all the reports you can run against astrology too. You know what I mean? Think of all the reports you can run against cards of life, cardsoflife.com. Check that out. That's funny. I'm a 5 of spades according to their personality, and it's still astrology. But think about all of the answers that we're going to be able to provide the human race over the next 2 to 3 years. These kinds of answers are going to be so fundamental with how we approach human life that literally everything will start changing overnight. It'll be rapid change. Laws, entire laws are going to change, or at least there's going to be pressure from public opinion to get laws changed, because people are going to start to realize that the human brain is nothing more than a computer and you can hack it. And here's how. You just have to identify what kind of computer it is. That's all. You know what I mean? So we're in a very exciting time. It could also be very scary, as we've talked about plenty of times here within this community, for sure. But this still is something that we have to be aware of. But if you guys stick with me, we're definitely going to be having a different approach over the next 3 years. Remember, CSJ as a company, it exists only as a fundraiser to raise money for building this system. A complete, total social media application that is helping people and changing people's lives, saving marriages, the works on a regular basis every day. That's what people are going to get out of it. Understanding themselves, understanding of others. But at the same time, we're collecting data on all these users that they opt in to give us because they're using our platform. To use their platform, we get their data. That's just the rule. Get over it. And we're going to be running some serious reports against this data and publishing psychology journals based on this data we're collecting. And based on that, it will become we will have solid, concrete proof. As soon as that happens, everything will start to change. And I have a feeling it's going to create a great awakening for our race. And every aspect of culture, including our traditions, everything will be up for grabs. It will be a new renaissance, a new great awakening. It's not just creating a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't care about the money. It's going to obliterate fatherlessness. And we'll be one step closer to having cultures around the earth realizing that they need to reevaluate who they are and why their culture is the way it is and why they have their traditions. It will basically reset the collective unconscious of our race across the planet. And it may even change our priorities for the better. I would say it would likely, because when everyone is able to understand each other, they're able to love each other. Now, obviously, when everyone is able to understand each other, they also have a higher attack surface. Everyone has a higher attack surface, and people could be attacked and manipulated far more easily. But the thing is if they know themselves really well, they can recognize those attacks, and things can change. So stick with me, because we're going to be a part of this renaissance, and we're going to be creating this renaissance, this great awakening together. And as long as we don't give up, this community will be the driving force of that renaissance. If we don't want the result of that renaissance to be evil, to be death, basically, then I think it's best if we as a community stick together and make sure we're the ones guiding humanity in that direction. That way, we don't have that issue. So, but that's just a good expert intuition hero of what the future is going to look like. And it all comes down to seriously considering Dario Nardi's work, and then combine Dario Nardi's work with my work. And then we could start getting ourselves some answers, even as early as this year. But it really comes down to understanding how to rewire your brain. Because rewiring your brain, I know I talk like in season 19, about, okay, yeah, you need to develop your personal responsibility and your humility and your wisdom so you can gain mastery in your superego, and that's your path to enlightenment. Absolutely. But that's a nice overall picture, and it gives you some things. But how about we actually talk about what is actually mechanically happening in your brains, in your mind, to actually get to that point. And that's what we're talking about today. And now everyone's like, oh, crap. That was a nice 30-minute introduction. Okay, fine. Sue me. But it's a conference. I'm just going loose here. It's all good. So how to rewire your brain. When you are trying to achieve something, you have to, what are rewiring your brains? What are those wires in your brains and you know, creating neural pathways? What are those? Neural pathways are also known as, new dictionary term, cognitive bridges. You're just bridge building. That's all it is. Why would you care about cognitive bridges? What does that lead to? It leads to cognitive emulation, right? As a result, or actually more accurately, cognitive emulation is actually how you build the bridges. So cognitive emulation is building the bridges. If the goal is, you know, hey, I need to rewire my brain to get it better on, why would you bother doing it? Why rewire your brain? What's the goal here? Goal will be green. It'll be, you know, let's just say integration, or with the four sides of mind, enlightenment, being the best version of yourself. Wow, it helps if I actually know how to spell properly. Enlightenment, right? That's what you really want, right? How do you get there? So yeah, we've talked about season 19 content. That's great. But really, like, what's actually happening from a neuroscience standpoint, what's happening neurologically, you're really actually building neural pathways. Did you guys know that neural pathways are like, they're like freeways? Oops. They're freeways, multi-lane freeways for your neurons, to move on. The problem is that your brain might not have enough freeways, or it might not care to build the bridge. So how do you get those bridges built? Well, you have to learn how to do cognitive emulation. So let's look at it this way. Emulation, which leads to bridges, or those neural pathways. Okay. So emulation to bridges to neural pathways, right? And then that basically, you have your brain rewired at that point, completely rewired, such that you end up achieving integration, enlightenment. Yeah, that sounds very NE general. I get it. It's like, okay, Chase, where's the beef? Give me some actual practical applications of this. I will do so right now. I'll give you a practical application. We're going to use my brain. We're going to use my brain right now. I'll show you guys some examples directly from my head on this one. So, four sides of the mind, right? We're going to put Chase right here, okay? And then we're going to do NE hero, TI parent. Oh, I'm going to probably smack BB in this one. Poor guy. Love you, BB. You got us closer to the truth. God bless you. All right. So I am an amoral person. I'll admit it. I'm an amoral person. Or I am the most principled person. The most moral person. How? Because this is the trickster. And this is the master. Right? Let's look at this one. I am the most spiteful person, right? Most spiteful person. or I am the most strengthening person. You know, spiteful is inflicting damage to cause wounds, right? Strengthening to actually strengthen people who have weakness, right? And with that, there's different ways. Obviously, you have the demon and you have the angel, okay? When you're trying to reach cognitive integration, basically cognitive integration, or AKA enlightenment, you're basically utilizing your cognitive gateways, and your gateways are, I'll show you right here. Remember, your cognitive gateways are your first function, your second one, or your fourth one, your fifth one, and your eighth one for your 4 gateways, okay? And those gateways are the pathways. Those gateways are like neural pathways, right? Look at it this way. This is a giant interstate, okay? This is also an interstate. Interstate. Another interstate. Is it? No, it's actually not an interstate. This is a highway, actually. You see? And in here we have suburbs, you know? Suburbs and utility roads, right? Suburb roads, utility roads, highway, interstates. But it's like a smaller interstate. It's not that big. And here, you know, you have city roads, maybe some railroad here for the child. These are just examples, okay? But think about these in terms of neural pathways, okay? And I'm not saying all the gateways are interstates. This is just an example. And it might get a little confusing. I apologize. These are just examples, okay? So you can go into these roads. They may not have any pavement on them. Like, for example, if you go on like something the equivalent of an interstate in China, there's no such thing as traffic laws in China. It's every man for himself. Your cognition is like every man for himself, basically. But when you apply order, when you actually paint the ground and have street signs and laws that define that order, law and order, well, then everything goes through on these interstates and on these roads in an orderly manner. And you have to develop your brain by building these neural pathways. Let's say you have your highway, that's your SE demon, right? No. When I'm reaching mastery, because I built all my other stuff, I could finally turn this into an interstate. Oh, wait a minute. That means I could use my SE demon in a way that allows me to have more controlled traffic, orderly manner. And instead of being spiteful because it's every man for themselves on this highway, it's becoming very strengthening, and I could get my angel side anytime I want. Of course, me being a spiteful SE demon may actually be necessary for somebody. Like if I saw some emo INFJ who was like trying to tell me that they're going to kill themselves or they're cutting themselves, to which then I just start mocking them because it's for their own good. And me mocking them is actually the angel speaking through its demonic, spiteful language. You see what I'm saying? They're still useful. Like, guys, it's not even your vice function, when you're talking like virtue and vice, even your vice function is useful. Or not vice function, but even your vice is useful. My vice is insincerity, right? So sometimes being insincere protects myself. You know, just as much as being spiteful, SE demon could help somebody. Read the book When Helping Hurts. Sometimes you need to hurt people to help them. This is the TI concept of negative hurt. Something NFJs need to learn. That would be nice. Something SFJs need to learn. That would be nice. But something that STPs and NTPs already have pretty much figured out. Okay. And it's something that the TE users just need to accept. I did a Wayfarer lecture which pissed off a lot of people. Good. Do I regret it? No, absolutely not. Everyone's like, thank you, Chase, for your apology. And to which I asked, where did I apologize? I didn't. I didn't apologize for anything. But it just goes to show that there's people in this audience who, make assumptions and they assume that I'm apologizing. I didn't apologize for anything. Actually, all I said is everyone is biased. Everyone's a hypocrite. So am I. That's all I said. I was just telling a self-evident truth, but then people are labeling it. They're ad hominiming it an apology? What? No. That was me just dressing up my words, right? Why is this relevant? Think about it. My spiteful demon going off in the Wayfarer lecture. I will admit, I trashed Wayfarer types intentionally with the full force of my SE demon. And they all got offended. But at least they heard the truth, and many of them accepted the truth, and they're happy I did the lecture that way, and they said it was perfect. I got many letters from people. And then I did my follow-up live stream, and people then are saying, oh, thank you for the apology. But I wasn't in my spiteful demon mode. But the result of me not being in my spiteful demon mode is not the truth because they thought it was an apology. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Do you guys get it? So let me ask you this. Why the fuck should I stop being spiteful if the result is going to be people think, if people end up thinking the wrong thing at the end? They literally thought it was an apology. It was not. But I was spiteful and people got the truth, which is what I wanted them to hear, so that those people now can improve and have better lives, right? But then I make that live stream afterwards. You know what's funny about this? A lot of people don't realize this, and I'll share this with the rubies and sapphires here. I'll share this with you guys. Did you guys know that the Quadra lectures and that little open letter to the community, and while everything I said in the open letter to the community is 100% true, I stand by my words. I stand by my words, even on my little angry letter that I sent that morning on Facebook and everything. I stand by everything I said. If you really spend the time to actually read everything word for word, I never actually apologized. If you really did, I'm very careful. You know, that sincerity virtue, right? I'm really careful about what I say, okay? So when I'm doing that, is it not better to just be brutally honest with someone and allow my spiteful demon get the truth out? Because then it will permanently maim them with the icy sword of truth, and then they'll remember that they need to behave better. But when I take that spitefulness away, and then I do the open letter live stream like I did, all of a sudden everyone thinks I apologize, which is not even true. The point is, I just concretely proved to you that there is value in being viceful sometimes. There's value in giving into your demon's power. There's value there. SI demons need SC demon to mock them so SI demon can be healthy. It's for their own good. But don't forget, in past Ruby conferences, I talked about ego hacking crowds, ego hacking great groups of people. Even a great multitude of people has SI demon, the SI demon for the multitude. Why is that? Because when God looks upon the earth and looks on at the race he created, is he not seeing a mere reflection of himself? So obviously a crowd would have all these collective cognitive functions together, right? And I was maiming the SI demon of the crowd. Do you guys not understand that my Quadra lectures in season 17 is literally an experiment that I've been running this entire time to prove that I can ego hack crowds of people? You have physical proof right in front of you, folks. Oh, but apparently C.S. Joseph doesn't know what he's talking about. This is just a concrete example of why it's so important to understand the cognitive gateways and to understand that as you use cognitive emulation, like using introverted feeling trickster, for example, if I'm emulating morality by using all of my previous roads, think about it this way. It's a huge emergency. Natural disaster just went down. Everyone's trying to use all the roads at once to escape the natural disaster. And the only way to solve getting away with the natural disaster is we have to get to the little lonely mountain. Hopefully there's not a dragon inside of it. We have to get into the lonely mountain away from everything. But it's FI Trickster. It's the lonely mountain. Oh, crap. There's not very much space here on this road. Holy crap, we have to part the Red Sea. We have to go to all of the effort to use FI Trickster right now in order to solve this calamity that's in front of us, where an ENTP is in a shitty-ass situation such that the ENTP, oh, and by the way, I no longer believe Gary Vaynerchuk is an ENFP. I believe he's an ENTP. My bad. I'll do a lecture on that. Anyway, the point is, when you have an ENTP who is forced in a situation, he realizes, I have to show a form of moral principles in order to get out of this shitty situation, okay? Well, that's like, you have to use all of your cognitive functions or a series of your cognitive functions to emulate. And that means, crap, I need to use my hero all the way down to my critic just to be able to produce what I need for the FI Trickster and part the motherfucking Red Sea. And guess that little path is little tiny to get all those people, to get all that cognition through that little path to get to the other side, right? That's hard. Yeah? Maybe I should like build a highway there. See what I'm saying? Rewiring your brain is all about building neural pathways. You do it by starting with cognitive emulation. It forces the neurons in your brain to need new pathways. There's actually a story. There's actually a story about a guy who had a brain aneurysm, and he lived. He got it like he had an MRI once on his brain because there was something else bothering him, and they're like, "You have a brain aneurysm." He's like, "Oh, okay. Does that mean I'm okay?" He's an INTP. It's funny. He's an INTP guy with a brain aneurysm, and they're like, "You seem to be fine. It's like your brain has rewired itself all the way around the brain aneurysm." And they're like, "How did you do that? What are you spending all your time on?" He's like, "All I do is play Sudoku every day. I do it 2 hours a day. And I'm one of the top 10 Sudoku players in the world." Playing Sudoku helped his brain wire itself around his brain aneurysm to keep him alive. Do you guys not understand that when you use cognitive emulation, which is explained in season 1, I'm going to be talking a lot more about it in season 18, Cognitive Mechanics. Think of this as a preview to Cognitive Mechanics season. You're rewiring your brain, okay? And when you're rewiring your brain, you're getting to a point where it's like, okay, I just wired my way around the aneurysm. I just wired my way around not having feelings or morals because I'm an amoral person because hashtag I'm chaotic neutral, right? Have you thought of that? So what you end up doing is that eventually your trickster path gets upgraded to a highway. Now, it's like, well, wait a minute, C.S. Joseph, does that mean it's still a trickster? It's a trickster or a master function. But the thing is, chances are if you're upgrading your FI trickster through cognitive emulation and you're forcing your brain to rewire itself to create new neural pathways to your trickster function, what's happened to all the other areas of your brain? By then, you've been using other areas of your brain that other highways have been upgraded to interstates or other city roads have been upgraded to highways. You see what I'm saying? So the brain is growing in total. All of your cognitive functional preferences between all the cognitive attitudes, hero through demon, they've received upgrades too in certain areas at certain times of your life, especially since you're already using those highways, those roads, those neural pathways more often than the others. Dario Nardi's work proves it. Read his book. Okay. This is literally what's happening. There's even pathways that will suggest that you're moving from your ego into your subconscious and back. There's even pathways to suggest that you're moving into your shadow side versus your ego. The problem is we can't exactly tell which is which, but I guess we could probably look at someone to help try to figure out what their cognitive focus is and then do a brain scan to just see, like, what it is. I'm sure there's some kind of consistencies there that we'll find out. But I don't know for sure. Again, like when it comes to Dario Nardi, he does amazing work. I just need him to verify the types of people that he does put in through his machine first. And then we can actually look at what's what and have proper data. That's all I want from him. Otherwise, his approach is excellent. High five to him. He's one of the few psychologists out there that I still, or neuroscientists, or someone who's involved in personality theory that I think is more than credible. Because remember, guys, credibility is a form of ad hominem. Ad hominem is a logical fallacy. It's a lie, okay? Ad hominem is when you're in an argument with someone, and because you can't win the argument, you just start calling them names. That's ad hominem. Credibility does not mean, someone who is credible does not mean someone's actually intelligent. That's just a TE user's lazy way of saying, I should listen to that guy. He's more believable. Credibility equals believability. Credibility does not equal truth. Credibility does not equal facts. Credibility is just ad hominem logical fallacy. So stop paying attention to people that are credible. An uncredible person is still capable of telling the truth. A biased person is still capable of telling the truth, right? So rewire your brain. Create the neural pathways. It goes further. We talk about highways and interstates, right? But sometimes you need to be able to get off of a highway and onto an interstate, right? You use a junction. That's how you do it. A cognitive junction. Yay. Cognitive junction. How to rewire your brain. Here's how. I use the self-discipline of my introverted sensing, right? And I create a junction with it. Okay? And that junction is able to wire my SI directly to my FI and vice versa, where it becomes a two-way street, kind of like a back road or a junction where you're exiting and getting on the interstate. Because it's an interstate, it's a gateway, right? And I got a small little tiny ass highway here, if it is a highway, hopefully it is by now in my life, to get onto the interstate. So then, my introverted sensing, you know what's great about introverted sensing? It's like earth, right? You till the earth. And sometimes if it's not working with you, because when you till the earth, it can get painful. People get really uncomfortable. They just don't want to change. It takes a long time for SI to change. Cognitive junction, right? So when I have to build a junction to be able to get FI out. So introverted sensing is like earth, right? You're tilling it, you could shape it, you can mold it. It's what SE does. It shapes SI, it shapes it. So it's funny because SE is all about, it's all about strength of character, right? Strength of character and building character in others, right? So what her SE does, her SE starts beelining for my SI and making my SI stronger, more dutiful, right? And what it does is it teaches, or it strengthens, strengthens my introverted sensing, okay? Teaches and strengthens it. It makes me stronger. It makes me have more duty, more loyalty, more comfort in a lot of cases. It gives me higher strength of character, right? What this does is it also can make it pliable. Sometimes it's like, hey, I need to erode away some of the dust that you have in your SI and keep your SI fresh. Because what happens with the SI is it gets really dusty. It's like a dust bowl. Where's the life? Wind and water. I got to make some mud here to make it so your SI is shaped, right? This happens. So my SI gets stronger, which means my self-discipline goes up. And when my self-discipline goes up, I need to know that it's my duty to make sure that I behave in a morally principled way for my wife for the sake of her effie child, right? Well, I'm able to do this because I'm able to do this because of self-discipline. So what I end up realizing is that what does effie child really want? This is what it wants. FI gratitude. So then I have the self-discipline to remember to show gratitude. The action of showing real gratitude to my wife is the same or is equal to having an FI function. So what I've literally just done is created a junction neural pathway between my FI and my SI, and I'm piping introverted feeling morality into my SI. And my SI is basically, through self-discipline, forcing myself to take the shape of FI, gratitude is an example, to be able to provide that to FE child and serve it up to FE child on a platter. That's cognitive emulation turning into cognitive bridging, which is creating a neural pathway in the form of a junction so that I'm able to use my FI function. This is what is literally mechanically happening in our brains physically. This is what cognitive emulation does. This is what allows you to reach cognitive integration and ultimately enlightenment. Perfect example of it directly from our marriage, right here. Here's another example from our marriage. What happens when you pipe extroverted sensing demon via the junction and pipe it also into SI? Well, then guess what? I end up having the self-discipline to ask a question. What is that question? What's one of the biggest strengths and weaknesses of any NTP or any NTP? This applies to NTPs. Let me tell you right now, we're triple systematic. It's a major strength. Even NTJs don't have this on this because NTJs are not triple systematic. Triple being that you have a temperament or interaction style trait or communication style trait that is in your ego and your subconscious and your unconscious, right? Okay, so you have these things, and my wife, she's triple direct, right? But I'm triple systematic, which means a systematic person is focused on finding the best way to do something, focused on the best methodology to do something. And that means that NTPs, even better than NTJs, can always find the best way to do something. So I tell NTPs, if an NTJ is trying to tell you that their way of doing something is the best way, take it with a grain of salt first, because chances are you as an NTP actually know the better way anyway, or will eventually know the better way anyway through trial and error. Sorry, it's a fact. It's one of the greatest strengths of an NTP. However, it's also one of the greatest weaknesses. Check this out. Because of the lack of interest-based awareness, this is where NTJs can usually take advantage of NTPs, especially, if they're an NTP is the victim of a con artist who is an NTJ. When that NTJ is trying to steal themselves some treasure, you know what I'm saying? Well, what happens is that if I lack interest, right? Well, the only side of my mind that's interest-based is my superego. It's through my SE demon gateway, right? Because guess what? ESFP superego is an interest-based thing. Whereas my INTJ side, ENTP side, ISFJ side, they're all systematic. So when an interest-based person comes into my life, they know that they're getting out of something, and they know what I'm getting out of something. And typically, interest-based people create win-win situations, right? My wife, she's interest-based. She's all about the win-win. If she takes a loss as an interest-based person, if it's ever a win-lose or a lose-lose, the interest-based person automatically assumes they're being manipulated, because it's technically true. They are being manipulated. The thing is, if you're triple systematic as an NTP, you're not aware of that at all. You're not even aware of that, such that an interest-based person can manipulate someone who is triple systematic into realizing, or into believing, into thinking that the best way to do something equals a lose. So it's a lose-win in favor of the interest-based type, and the lose goes to the NTP, who's triple systematic, but the NTP believes it's the best way to do something, so they're willing to take a lose. And they've just been manipulated, and they don't even know it. My wife, Railgun, God bless her, found out that that's exactly what was happening to me, and she's like, you're not doing that. SE Hero is like, I am so obligating your introverted sensing inferior. You're going to realize that ain't happening anymore. That is a huge character flaw that even puts me at risk. What the hell? We're going to be adjusting that character flaw. Okay. So she taught me something. She taught my SI self-discipline to do something. Every single time I have a new interaction or any interaction with any human being in my life, the question always comes up in my head. And I forced myself to do this. I had to practice to do this. The question comes up in my head. What is this person getting out of the situation compared to what I am getting out of the situation? Doing that comparison also forces me to use TE Critic. TE Critic is wisdom, right? So she's actually teaching me how to use my interest-based demon and my TE Critic at the same time. And both of them are getting piped at the same time, being intertwined with each other like a helix, right? And being piped directly into a shared neural pathway, directly into my introverted sensing inferior function when it's aspiring, because when it's aspiring, the road's a lot bigger, right? And then I could pipe shadow functions into that gateway if I need to. And you can do the same thing into your hero. You can do the same thing into your nemesis. Any gateway function, you can pipe other functions into. Pipe or junction. I'm using programming language terms. My bad, guys. I'm an engineer. Sue me. But the point is, in this particular case, I end up having the SI inferior, SI aspirational self-discipline to ask every time I come into contact with somebody, what is this person getting out of this versus what am I getting out of this? And if they are getting more out of it than I am, I'm being manipulated and I need to stop. It allows me to create a boundary with that person to protect myself. Do you know how many times I have people asking me random questions? And I'm like, go watch the video. It has this answer. And then they get all pissed off at me as if I'm just their, as if I'm their fucking doormat, right? Or I'm their little bellhop where I have to they ring a little bell and I dutifully answer their question because ENTP Stockholm syndrome, right? But piping my TE Critic and my SE demon directly into my SI, right? Okay. Well, that's not a problem for me anymore. Do you know how many people I've blocked in 2019? I counted 600 plus people I have blocked in 2019 since knowing my wife, because I realized I was being manipulated by a lot of people. So obviously people like me need to make sure that I'm able to pipe in aspects of my superego and use it now. Most triple systematic types, they don't even think that, oh, hey, I should probably be using the temperament of my superego to help protect myself because I'm not interest-based. And even then, I still make mistakes with being social engineered from a systematic standpoint. But then I realize, hey, what is this person getting out of it versus what am I getting out of it? And if they're getting more out of it than I am, they're manipulating me because that's a fact. Wouldn't even going to occur to an ENFP or to an ENTP. It just wouldn't. Or an INTP for that matter. Until, of course, my ESTP wife comes around. See, folks, it's literally building neural pathways through as a result of cognitive emulation, as a result of having a demand on your life, nurturally speaking. My wife is providing nurtural pressure on my nature, which causes me to develop neural pathways to produce lower functions, attributes of lower functions and lower sides of the mind, including their communication styles and their temperaments or dispositions, right? And piping that directly to use those tools even in my ego. That's what cognitive emulation is. But eventually, it becomes second nature as those pathways are built, and then it gets you closer to cognitive integration, which gets you closer to enlightenment. Do you guys not understand what I'm saying here? That's how this mechanically works. It's just physically, for all those NTJs out there, or for all those SE users out there, it's literally just building neural pathways. This is how cognitive focus actually works. Cognitive focus is when you're, I'm an INTJ focused ENTP, right? It's because I have more neural pathways going between my INTJ side and my ego, right? Or Taylor Swift, she's an INTJ focused ESFP. She has more pathways to her subconscious than her unconscious, to her ego, which means her gateway functions are more expanded. They're more orderly. They're more capable, right? They're a lot more narrow when they're smaller. They become less narrow over time as they're used, right? But people, they prefer to use their hero and their child for everything. That's the most mature people. They need to build some pathways. They need to get some junctions going. They need to be upgrading their highways to interstates. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that is how to rewire your brain. And that concludes the lecture portion of the Rubri Conference for January 2020. Let's move on to question and answer as of now. Okay, so Q&A is up and everyone has the ability to speak. I would like to take questions now at this time. Go ahead. Anyone? So, what's up, Robert?
You could actually use water pipes and just explain skinnier, maybe elastic pipes.
Yeah, that's actually a better model. That's actually a really good point. I could have used that. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's really good feedback. Okay. I'd really like to have Daria Nardi as a guest for the Ruby conference, honestly. I might actually reach out to him. I think she already did see him. Or...
Yeah, I did see him. He did a conference here in the Bay Area, and then he was so gracious. He spent like 5 hours with us afterwards, just sitting there talking. It was awesome. But yeah, I'm going to go down to LA to do the full brain scan. A couple of us already did from the group, so it was pretty informative.
Yeah, Chris told me he got his brain scan. That's pretty awesome. I want my brain scan. Like, sign me up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd be happy to have that conversation with him, like, for sure. Well, looks like that's everything, folks. Thanks for coming, and thanks for being here. Thank you all for being my patrons, and I hope you guys found this presentation to be pretty helpful or enlightening for you. So that's my hope, at least.
It was awesome, Chase. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hope you guys are feeling better.
Thanks.
Thank you all too. Have a good night then. See you guys later.
Bye, Chase.